completed sectors. This is going to be a blinding effort from Toprak Razgatlioglu with 4 minutes to go. Alex Lowe's at the moment is second fastest. He's going to cut the gap to Razgatlioglu at the top of the timing order, but it's not going to be for long. There goes Toprak's lap of 1 minute 35.407. That is a stunning effort from Razgatlioglu. More than a second faster than anyone else has been once again in free practice 1.
Yeah, I said at the start of the show that we might get down into the 34s. It looks like if anyone's gonna, it's only going to be Toprak, but he still needs to find another 0.4 of a second. But some riders are finding some pace. You can see there Leon Haslam with a good opening sector there for him to try and give himself a chance to try and improve on his fastest time. He's down in 12th fastest at the moment.
You're just making sure that Toprak's given a stretch target. That's standard practice, and it's all absolutely fine, but he's pushing towards it. Another fast first sector from Razgatlioglu with 3.5 minutes to go in FP1.
Yeah, really laying down a marker to everyone else, and Toprak very impressive with how quickly he's been able to get up to speed. We saw this earlier in the season in Most as well, a brand new track, and really in those opening couple of laps he was able to learn the track very quickly. Looks like it's been the same here.
Jonathan Ray still rooted to the pit box, and the statistics prove it along the bottom of the screen. Just 10 laps completed for Ray during this session. I said it earlier on, his running had been fairly restricted, while Toprak Razgatlioglu's out there about to pull another 0.3 of a second at least off his previous fastest time. Jonathan Ray stranded in 8th position and stranded in the pit box with work ongoing.
Yeah, and with only 2.5 minutes left, it's not too likely that he's going to get it back out. At the very least, he might manage to just get an out lap to make sure that the bike's okay for the afternoon, but that might be all that he's able to do in this session.
Toprak Razgatlioglu then over the line. Second run of the second lap of this final stint for Razgatlioglu, and he does get down into the 1 minute 34, so 1:34.985, and we're continuing to rub our eyes here in the commentary box with the alacrity with which Razgatlioglu has learned this circuit and is now pounding in the fast laps.
Yeah, 1.6 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Alex Lowe's up there in second fastest. Scott Redding 1.9 seconds off the pace. You can see there a bit of frustration probably for Jonathan Ray that he's not been able to get himself back out there after that first stint.
He was already starting on the back foot. He's going to feel even more on the back foot now. New circuit, first free practice session, rival storming away at the top of the timing charts, and 2.4 seconds down on him is Jonathan Ray. Now clearly there's a tyre element to that. Clearly there's an element to which Toprak has been putting in an awful lot more laps during this session than Jonathan Ray. He's going to be on almost double the number of laps that Ray has managed by the end of this FP1. Razgatlioglu storming away then. I don't think he's got anything left in the locker to try and improve that time any further, although he does tend to be a man of surprises, doesn't he? Alex Lowe's improving on his latest lap as things stand. Likewise, Scott Redding has just crossed the line. 1:36.820. Michael Vandermark also moving up the order. He's doing a good job. Further back on the circuit, Alvaro Bautista in line to make some real progress. 1:37.3, his previous best during this session, and we pick up the Spaniard now.
Yeah, could move himself up into the top 5 here. Bautista, 6th fastest, 2 seconds off the pace, so he's there pretty much the same kind of lap times as Vinales and Axel Bassani. Scott Redding a couple of tenths of a second faster, but Alvaro with time for another lap at the end of this session.
Well, I was going to say 2.5 seconds off the pace of Razgatlioglu, because to be perfectly honest, from Lowe's in second position down, there's very little to choose between them. Lowe's with a 1:36.529. That's Garrett Gerloff, who's just come across the line with a 1:36.585. So that's 1.6 seconds for Gerloff off Razgatlioglu. But from Lowe's all the way down past Jonathan Ray, who's now relegated outside of the top 10, but as you can see makes his way onto the circuit just to check that the machine is in working order, with only 20 seconds remaining until the checkered flag falls. But from Lowe's all the way down to Leon Haslam and Chaz Davies in 12th and 13th positions, just a second covering all of those riders.
Yeah, it is close in that second group, and what's going to be really interesting to see is what kind of progress everyone can make between free practice 1 and free practice 2, because spotting Toprak a second and a half, you kind of hope that a lot of that's just the fact that Toprak was willing to push harder than them at this stage, but we also know that the Yamaha as a package tends to work really well everywhere we've gone through the course of this season. So Toprak's going to feel with his base setting that he's got a pretty good option right from the outset, and obviously the opening laps are going to give him more and more confidence as well.
What second group is that then? Razgatlioglu is a group all on his own in free practice 1, 134.985, a second and a half faster than his nearest rival as the checkered flag falls. It's Alex Lowe's who's second fastest, then it's Garrett Gerloff, Redding Vinales, Alvaro Bautista just recovering 6th place as he crosses the line, 137 flat for Bautista, so a couple of promising laps at the end of the session from the former world number 2. Axel Bassani 7th fastest, Michael van der Mark, Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Andrea Locatelli rounding out your top 10. Jonathan Ray completes his installation lap and he'll see the checkered flag.
Yeah, and Andrea Locatelli was the busiest rider out there as well. Looks like he's going to do 21 laps in this session himself, and Tito Rabat. And Toprak put in a lot of laps as well, 19 laps, and you'd imagine when you look at the time there from Alex Lowe's at 36.5, Toprak's going to have quite a few laps faster than that as well. When we see the session analysis at the end of the session, that's where we're really going to be able to see just how strong Toprak's been. It hasn't been one lap, I'd say you're looking at 5 or 6 laps that have been faster than anyone else. You
mentioned previously the crash for Tom Sykes in the second sector earlier on in the session. He made his way back to the pits as Toprak Razgatlioglu proves himself a real master of balance on the front wheel. He's like a performing seal at times, this man, isn't he? And he might have some more celebrations in store for us if he can claim the world title this weekend, which could be as soon as tomorrow.
Well, I'll be honest, no matter what Toprak's title celebrations could potentially be, they're not going to be anywhere near as spectacular as he is out in the racetrack, because we saw right from the start of this session how hard he was willing to push. We saw in his outlap he was making moves on riders around him, and he's just brought the confidence that comes from the success he's had all the way through the season to bear all the way through, and looks really, really good right from the outset here. 2nd and a half in hand, obviously, on Alex Lowe's shows just how strong it is, but Toprak's just put that pressure onto Jonathan Ray, and the technical issues that Ray had, that would have increased that pressure even more.
Do you think anyone in the team, maybe the suspension engineers, have to put their hands in front of their eyes when they see all the weight going onto the front tyre?
I think Paul Denning has to do that, the team manager, but for Yamaha and for Toprak, they want to make sure that they're focused on getting across the line, but like we saw from Ben Speed's tweet earlier on, sometimes for a rider like Toprak that's got that pace, got that consistency, got that confidence, you're better off just taking your normal approach. You're better off making sure you're being aggressive, trying to win the races, and then everything else will take care of itself. That's what Toprak has said all the way through this season. He wants to win races, everything else will just fall into place. It looks like from the start here in free practice 1, he's trying to make sure he does that.
And in fairness, Yamaha appear to have managed that process perfectly. They've said right from the start of the season, we don't want to change anything about Toprak. We know he's got the performance, we know he's got the winning mentality. We want to give him the freedom to express himself out on the circuit, and Toprak's been able to do exactly that.
Yeah, and I think when you look back at pre-season testing, I was down at the Jerez test before the start of the season, and I was chatting to the team about Toprak and how the winter had gone, and they said that they'd seen a massive change in terms of how he had approached winter testing. He wasn't afraid of going in and doing a lot of miles, really focusing on developing the package, being the team leader, and from that point onwards he really has changed an awful lot in terms of how he's approached the season compared to previous years. It's been really impressive to see just how much Toprak's matured over the course of the last few years.
Yes, the work rate has been there for Toprak Razgatlioglu, and the performance with it. He is the fastest man in FP1, our first ever session in World SBK here at the Mandalika International Circuit. And Razgatlioglu 1.5 seconds faster than his nearest rival. That is a stunning margin for that first session. Alex Lowe's second fastest, so a good job on return from surgery and from injury for the number 22 KRT man. Garrett Gerloff third fastest in the end with a late lap for him. Scott Redding fourth. We did see Ducatis up in the 3 of them in the top 5 positions in the mid stages of that FP1, so we know they've got some pace. Redding fourth in the end. Isaac Vinales again appearing up towards the top of the timesheet. It's not the first time he's done that on a Friday, so he'll be satisfied with his start. Bautista, Bassani, Van der Mark, Rinaldi and Locatelli round out your top 10. Jonathan Ray just outside the top 10, losing an awful lot of running, only 11 laps for him compared to 21 for the rider who did the most. Toprak Razgatlioglu, stunning stint summary for him as he got out there on 3 occasions with plenty of speed on each of them. Alex Lowe's gradually improving as the session went on. You'd expect that to an extent with a new circuit and the riders still learning the ropes and still finding the way. Likewise for Garrett Gerloff, his fastest lap time coming on his penultimate lap in that second stint. But even second and third fastest, 1.5 seconds to Toprak Razgatlioglu. Cannot get over that margin in the opening session of the weekend, and a weekend that could be a title decider for him. Look at the sector times then. Toprak fastest by 0.4 of a second in sector 1. That's the straight, the braking zone for turn 1 and the first couple of flip-flops, so that alone is 0.4. Sector 2 is a little bit closer, thank goodness for that. Leon Hauslev and Alex Lowe's. To be perfectly honest, we've said the middle of the lap, it didn't look as dominant for Toprak. That final sector, though, is going to be one to watch. Razgatlioglu ahead of Lowe's by 1.5 of a second. Here comes sector 4. Don't be surprised, it's going to be a big margin again. 0.3 over Garrett Gerloff, and Isaac Viñales also appearing strongly through there. So Razgatlioglu very much the man to beat, and very close to the ideal fastest lap as well. And all of those times in those sectors will all be from Razgatlioglu as well. Dominant force then in free practice 1. We'll be back for FP2 at the usual time of 3 p.m. here in Indonesia. You might just want to change your clocks for the rest of the weekend if you're sticking with us from afar.